Assalamualaikum and good morning everybody. First, I would like to thank you all for being here with me today, where we will be discussing about corruption within land district, where small but impactful bribery and corruption runs rampant within the office. First, I'll be talking about its relevance as well as significance. As I'm sure you're all aware, land district offices play a crucial role in ownership transfer, in land registration, as well as the insurance of permits. Whenever there is a corruption that occurs within this office, it can cause major setbacks and problems for us common folks as well as the country as a whole. Here are some examples of the relevances. First is housing affordability. As you know, developers may pay bribes in order to fast track zoning changes or to get approval faster, and this can come at a huge price for the developers. And in order to recuperate these losses, they will then add hidden fees or hidden costs to the houses that we buy. And this will then, of course, increase the housing costs. Next, it will cause an issue within the social justice. This is because bribery is often linked with the fraudulent transfer of Malay Reserved Land, or the MRL. For example, a recent case occurred in Perak where over 600 hectares was then transferred to non-Malays through forged documents. This is then going to lead to a depleted sources of Malay reserve land for the Malay people to use. Now, I will be talking about the significance of corruption within the land district. First, it will lead to an erosion of the torrent system. As you all know, Malaysia uses the torrent system, where the owner of a property owns the land as well as the buildings on it. Let's say, for example, if titles can be obtained or altered through bribery, then the indivisibility of the title or the guarantee that your land belongs to you will be compromised. This is because your land will then just be bought by other people illegally without your permission, which will then lead to a loss of your land. The next significance is that it will then lead to a loss of state revenue. This is because land premiums as well as state rents are usually the primary sources of income for state governance. However, bribery often involves the undervaluing of land or waiving fees, which will then lead to massive losses of profits or in public funds, which could have gone to welfare or infrastructure. Lastly, it will impact the public trust crisis. If there is a lot of continuous reports of land office staff being reprimanded by the MACC or the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, it will then, of course, foster a perception of pay-to-play governance. This will then discourage foreign direct investment towards our country.
Assalamualaikum and hi. 2.1 The definition. This case is defined as an analysis of systemic administrative irregularities within the Malaysian District Land Offices or the Pejabat Tanah dan Daerah. It specifically isolates the practice where public duty is conditional upon unofficial payments. We define the corruption in this case as administrative corruption or petty corruption. The specific act is the solicitation of facilitation payments, which is wang pemudah cara, which means small unofficial bribes paid to public officials to speed up or ensure the performance of a routine duty like finding a file or stamping a document to which the payer is already legally entitled to. Next up is the scope of our case study. The setting takes place in a district land office within a semi-urban growth corridor in Malaysia. We will focus in on the registration division or the bahagian pendaftaran where physical titles and transfer forms are usually processed. The key individuals in these type of corruption cases are the internal staff, which are the executive group, and file clerks, which have direct access to physical records. These individuals are the ones who will be receiving the bribes. And next up, we have the public, which are small landowners and small contractors, which are prone to bureaucratic delays. These people are the ones who will be giving the bribes to the internal staff. Furthermore, in some situations, we have intermediaries, which are the people who do the dirty work for the public who want to bribe the officials within the district offices. These are runners or touts, which are unregistered middlemen who facilitate the bribery between the public and the staff, usually in undisclosed locations, or dead drops. Up, we have the modus operandi of these corruption cases. First of all, there are facilitation payments or duit kopi. These are small, undocumented cash transactions, usually 50 to 500 ringgit in sum, paid to expedite routine processes such as adding or removing names discreetly from files or jumping queues. Last of all, for the modus operandi is the preferential treatment. This is fast-tracking applications submitted through specific friendly runners while sidelining regular public applications. In Malay, this is known as cable, where you find an insider who may be a friend or family that can help you settle your files quickly and in a more speedy process compared to others who have to wait in queue for a long time. This is also considered illegal and is considered corruption in many cases.
Moving on to the anatomy of petty corruption in land administration. Why does this happen? It comes down to the two main things. First, the office has an administrative monopoly. If you need a land title, there is nowhere else to go. You are captured customer with no alternative. And second, there is low accountability because the record are manual and paper-based. So it's impossible for a supervisor to see who is working and who is intentionally stalling. In this dark system, clerk has the power to hide the files without any digital footprint or consequences. Moving on to the socio-economic impact. The results are damaging. First, it acts as a regressive tax, meaning it has the poor the most because they simply cannot afford to pay. And second is cause of economic stagnation. Without a title, a family cannot get a bank loan or sell their land or even doing some investment, which stops money from flowing into the community. And finally, it causes the intentional erosion when people believe the system is rigid and they stop trusting the government entirely and the rule of law begins to fall apart.
So next, I will be presenting on this subtopic, which is a description of the case, and we have three of them, which is key practice, justification by the staff, and the consequences for non-paying applicant. So the first one, we have key practice. So basically, in office, staff never openly ask for bribes. Instead, they make indirect suggestion using phrases like the process may take a long time and some files move faster than others. When applicant understood the message and paid a small facilitation fee, their application will process quickly. This payment were not large, but they happen frequently, and over time this practice become routine, making bribery a normal part of the daily work. So next we have justification by the staff. So when questioned, staff justify that their action by pointing to their working condition. They said the office handled too many applications with too few employees. They also mentioned that low salaries and outdated manual administrative system. According to them, facilitation fee were a way to cope with pressure and inefficiency. However, this justification did not make the practice ethical or acceptable. So last one, we have consequences for non-paying applicants. So applicants who refuse to pay those applicants who refuse to pay face serious consequences. Their fare were delayed for months without clear reason. Some were told their document had been lost or misplaced, and others were repeatedly asked to submit their additional paperwork even when they had already completed all requirements. So as a result, honest applicants suffer frustration, financial loss, and unequal access to public service.
Now I'll be presenting the data and evidence of cases that happened in Malaysia throughout the years. For our first case, it happened in Kedah during 2019. It involves 5 different peoples, including male and female, from ranging up to 48 to 57 years old. According to the MCC source, the suspect allegedly accepts bribery from the landowner in return for registering the land under 41 different names under improper processing. The arrests were taking place during 8:20 to 4:20 p.m. at multiple sites, including Alor, Pendang, and Pulau Langkawi. For the second case, we have a case that happened in Kuala Terengganu. A land officer from the Kemaman Land Office named Muhammad Zahid Abdul Rahim, 59 years old, was caught under 3 faults, which one of them is misusing the official government land for his own personal use. What he did was he uses his own son's name to register the land. This happened 4 years before he got caught. Now for my final case, I want to present a case that happened here directly in Ipoh. It involves 3 individuals, 1 staff under the PTG, and 2 officers from a company. They all have been caught under a bribery of 400,000 ringgit. The money is said to be accepted by the officers so that the company or the owner of the company can gain access to a land of 2.2 hectares in the Kinta district. This case is to be said This case is under investigation under the Act of Section 17A, Akta SPRM 2009. That's all, thank you.
So I'm gonna explain about my part, which is ethical consideration. So first of all, the subunits of ethical consideration is, the first one is identity anonymization. Identity anonymization is to ensure the integrity of our study and protect those involved. We have fully anonymized the identities of all staff members and applicants. This means names, specific job titles, and unique identifiers have been removed or masked. So the goal is to prevent any professional or personal repercussion from the individuals mentioned in the case. The second one is data privacy and disclosure. So what to say? We strictly adhere to data protection standards. No personal data such as contact information, private records, or sensitive demographic. It was disclosed at any point during the research or within this report. The goal is to full compliance with privacy regulation like GDPR or institutional policies and maintaining the trust of our participants. And the last one is institutional focus versus individual blame. What to say? Critically, this case is designed to analyze institutional practice and systemic workflows. We are looking at how and why the process functions as it does, rather than assigning individual blame to any single employee. The goal is to foster a constructive environment for improvement rather than a punitive one. So, that's all.
So now we are looking at the findings regarding institutional bottlenecks and the true nature of the corruption within our systems. First, the small sum fallacy. It is a common misconception that small bribes are negligible. In reality, these small bribes aggregate to create a massive institutional bottleneck that paralyzes productivity. Systemic failure. We must recognize that corruption is not really a series of isolated incidents. Instead, it has evolved into a standardized informal operating system used to navigate the organizations. The hidden costs. The damage extends far beyond monetary loss. The real long-term costs are the significant delays in time and the erosion of public trust and perception. So to solve these issues, we have to understand the vulnerabilities that allow this operating system to exist. We have identified 3 primary root causes. So the first one is lack of oversight. Current staff members hold high gatekeeping power while operating with zero digital footprints, making their actions nearly impossible to track. Next, the survival narrative. There is a cultural issue where staff have normalized bribery, viewing it as a necessary supplement to their low wages. Last is manual records. So the reliance on manual record keeping allows files to be intentionally hidden or lost as a tactic to force payments from the public. Moving forward, our strategy focuses on removing the incentive for corruption by improving the system itself. So first, efficiency as a deterrent. We have learned that most people pay bribes simply because the official process is too slow. So by fixing the speeds of our operations, we effectively remove the demand for illicit shortcuts. Next, transparency equals accountability. We must move to a digital transparency. If an applicant can see their file status online in real time, staff can no longer lie about its promise to solicit a bribe. Finally, incentive realignment. Finally, we must change our internal culture. Integrity must be actively rewarded, and any unintentional delays in processing must be strictly audited to ensure they are not being used as leverage.